So, what really causes insulin resistance diabetes? There are a lot of myths and unscientific information that confuse the public when it comes to what really causes diabetes. And like I mentioned previously, this is the condition that we ought to understand. In this video, I'm going to explain to you with the scientific evidence what really is behind insulin resistance type 2 diabetes. So without wasting much time, let's go into it right now. Hi, I'm Dr. Mura, a certified lifestyle medicine physician and co-founder of Dr. Mura Health. Dr. Mura Health is a company that equips you with a practical, evidence-based scientific tools on how to treat, prevent, even reverse chronic lifestyle-related diseases. In our previous video, we did mention different types of diabetes. If you would have missed that, I will suggest that you check on them first before you check this video, because it's going to help you to understand the context of what we're talking about. While insulin resistance can occur in all these other types of diabetes, when we talk about insulin resistance diabetes, we often refer to insulin resistance type 2 diabetes. In type 2 diabetes, what is really major problem is the muscles. Like we talked about it before, you have hormone insulin that enables the glucose entering the muscle cells to be able to move and to be able to have the energy that the body really needs. But the problem comes when the muscles are really resistant or not listening to the insulin. When that happens, then we have the blood glucose that continue to rise and rise in the bloodstream because they shut out outside the muscle cell. They cannot get in. In doing that, the whole system, the body is going to be affected. Some major organs are going to be affected. Some of the complications that we're going to talk about in our next video. But now the major issue is what causes that resistance at the first place. That question was answered first almost 100 years ago, and thereafter there have been many scientific literature talking about this. In 1927, researchers took healthy young medical students and divided them into different groups to tease out the effect of different diets. So the first group, they fed them a high-fat diet, which was composed of olive oil, butter, and egg yolk and cream. And the second group, they fed them carbohydrate-rich diet, which was composed of sugar, sweet, pastry, white bread, baked potatoes, syrup, banana, rice, and oatmeal. To the researchers' surprise, the insulin resistance skyrocketed in the group that were fed high-fat diet. And not only that, their blood sugar doubled when they were in response to the sugar challenge, far more when you compare to the group that were fed carbohydrate starch diet. Now you may be wondering, how can that be? I'm sure you would have been, told many times that actually carbohydrates or starch actually causes diabetes. Yet now you hearing from me that no, actually it is fat that is a problem. Yes, it is fat. Here's the thing. When we eat food, let's say you eat carbohydrate, our digestive system breaks down the starches into glucose, and then it enters into circulation as blood sugar, and then it goes into the muscles, and then the muscles use it or keeps it in there for later use. Before the sugar goes into the muscles, it must be invited, and that kind of invitation, it is what we call the insulin. So insulin basically is more like a key or a swiping card that basically opens up the locks on the surface of your muscle cell to allow the sugar to come in. Now, when that doesn't happen, of course, like I mentioned previously, then you have a lot of sugar continue to rise and rise into your bloodstream because they are shut outside. Now, so the insulin attaches to the insulin receptor of your muscle cell, activating series of action that ushers the sugar into the muscle cell, and then you can use it as it appropriately needed. If that does not happen, of course, that's where we have a problem. In type 2 diabetes, we don't have problem with the invitation. The problem is not the insulin. It's not the key. It's not that swiping card. You have it. But the problem is the front door locks on your muscle cell are jammed up that basically the insulin won't work. Now the problem comes, what is really jamming those locks in your muscle cell? The key is the fat. Intracellular lipid, alluded to earlier on. Basically, it's the fat inside your muscles that causes the muscle not to be responsive to insulin. The fat in your bloodstream, either from the fat that you eat or the fat that you wear from your fat stores, can build up into your muscle cell, and that can actually cause some toxic products and free radicals that end up blocking the insulin signaling process. Now, when this happens, by the way, talking about the fat issue, there are different fats and they don't affect the muscle cell the same way. For example, talking about the palmitate, it's a type of saturated fat that is mainly found in meat, dairy, and eggs. It has been shown to be a major cause of insulin resistance. The other type of fat, the oleate, which is more of mono unsaturated fat, for example, mainly found in nuts, olive, and avocado, are actually more protective against the detrimental effect of the saturated fat. The studies referring to the effect of fat and how it interferes with insulin signaling has been done over and over again. In fact, today we can actually be able to check to see how the researchers can see how much fat is in your muscles by the use of the MRI technology. Not only that, they can literally track your fat from when you eat. For example, from the time you eat that double cheeseburger, going into your stomach, breaking down going to your bloodstream, going to the muscles, and literally they can see how insulin starts rising up, causing that type of effect of insulin resistance. Now, not only that, the saturated fat, bad news doesn't end there. It does not only interferes with the signaling of your insulin, but also it starts also destroying your pancreatic cells that produce insulin to start with. And this is why we ought to understand the real cause of this disease. By the way, am I saying that sugar is okay in a diabetic patient? No, that's not the point. We talk about at Dr. Mura Health, we talk about a different type of sugars and stuff, because the sweet and the sugar and the carbohydrates in the beans, they are not the same. So we get to differentiate things. But here, what I want us to understand, the problem is not just carbohydrates. The major issue is intracellular lipid that prevents your muscles responding to the insulin. That's why I said in diabetic patient, type 2 diabetic, you find actually they are producing more insulin, but the problem is that a lock is jammed up. They cannot cause the muscle to respond to usher the glucose in. Anyway, I hope this was clear and helpful. And again, at Dr. Mura Health, we go into the details. That's where we understand what is causing this, and we go into these different steps, different approaches on how we can start making the muscle responding to insulin. And then you may start using less of your insulin if you use insulin, using less of your medication, to the point, if you're constant with the program, to the point you can even be off your medication. Anyway, stay tuned. We're going to talk about the complication of diabetes, and then we can actually talk about how does Dr. Mura Health Diabetic Solution Program work, and then if you're interested, you can be part of the program. Anyway, stay tuned, and thank you for watching.